Happy Finish Friday, everybody. Part of the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm on two cameras. So those of you who love Instagram, we're on Instagram. And those of you who are on Facebook, we're on Facebook. So welcome, everybody. Today we're going to be going over two of my favorite products. I've got a cameraman who's making some noise, and we're going to tell him, stop it. All right, so we're excited. It's Christmas around here. Of course, this is our last day before the holidays. And so we're excited about getting ready for that. So if you are not familiar with plaster, I want you to know that your life as far as refinishing and all that type of thing is getting ready to change in a dramatic way. It's a great product to be able to use in conjunction with our milk paint. I do want to tell you that it's very important to understand that the Amy Howard at Home line of products have all been developed to work together, to be natural and to be able to work together and not worry about having synthetic products to mix. And that's what you're going to run into a lot of times. If you go to an art store, you go to another hardware store that has maybe synthetic plaster that's already in a bucket and it's mixed up. There's all kinds of chemicals and things in that you do not want to mix with your milk paint. I will tell you, our Venetian plaster, the Amy Howard at Home Venetian plaster, is natural. It only has 3 ingredients, and guess what? This recipe has been around, this same identical recipe has been around for thousands of years. It is a combination of just 3 simple ingredients: lime, calcium carbonate, which is chalk, and marble dust. That's it, guys. Lime, marble dust, and calcium carbonate or chalk. That's the only ingredients in here. It's not a bunch of chemicals. It's things that you don't have to worry about trying to pronounce. These are the same products that have been put together in real Venetian plaster that comes from Venice, that was used to be able to be put on their walls, on floors, on furniture, because it would help against moisture and dampness. Hey, Instagram, hey. So you want to make sure when you're working with a true Venetian plaster that it is just that. Our plaster actually comes from Italy. So we don't get it from a supplier here in the U.S. that's mixing a bunch of chemicals in it. You will never get the same look. So you've got to be able to mix it from scratch. So part of the same reason why we love working with our Toscana milk paints. Toscana basically means Tuscany. All those ingredients come from Italy as well. And part of the reason why these come in powder forms is because you can mix what you need, and then that way it's good forever. Now, the milk paint, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and the fact that you only want to mix up what you need, the amount to be able to work on a project, because it has milk in it. It's only good for a couple of weeks. Our plaster is totally different. Our plaster is good forever. Once you mix it up with water, just regular tap water is fine. It's good forever. But I like having it in a powder form like this because I'm going to show you how to mix it with your milk paint. One of the first things we want to do, though, before we get started, is we are going to announce our winner this week. Remember, when we go through and we have a process that it's done randomly by our computer that picks this. This is something that I don't know anything about until they hand this to me right before we go live. So I want to announce congratulations are in order to Rachel Joyce. Congratulations, you are the winner of our Venetian plaster. So pay close attention today. One of the great things about these Facebook Lives is that they'll go and live in perpetuity forever on YouTube, so that way you can refer back to it and tell your friends. All right, so make sure that you check your emails, because we've got a special gift heading your way that you can be able to get some things, maybe some discounts or whatever, that we're wanting to send you and say thank you and Merry Christmas. So thank you again for tuning in. And congratulations, Rachel. All right, so one thing that I want to be able to show you and how Venetian plaster is so great is because, again, it contains the lime, the marble dust, and the calcium carbonate. It's a very thick, beautiful finish that you can put on walls and as well as on furniture. And I love being able to mix it. So one of the first things I want you to see is the fact that in this bag, I've been working from this quite a bit. It's in a powder form, and it's always going to be white. If you want to be able to tint it, you're going to tint it in a powder form. So I'm going to take a little bit of my Amalfi Coast, milk paint. And these are made to all go together. So I'm going to put this in here. It's best that you work with natural milk paints that aren't synthetic.
We have a question over here. Do you have to seal the milk paints?
Yes, you do need to seal the milk paints. Yes, that's very important. So you might want to go back on last week's and how we did that. So I want you to notice something. Look what's happening real quick. All of a sudden, our plaster is going to be a beautiful blue. Because these are natural pigments, these aren't synthetic pigments in our milk paints, you can see them change literally before your eyes. Look at that. So now I'm going to have a beautiful blue plaster that I'm going to be able to layer on my furniture. And watch this. I'm going to take a little bit of our Noir, which is our black. If you're going to be working on a piece of furniture, especially a lot of people we've noticed that have tuned in, they refinish furniture for people. This is your business. I love the fact that you are watching, because I love teaching people that they can turn around and use this to be able to build a furniture finishing business. Many of you don't know, but that's what I did for 26 years. All right, so you're only as good as your finishes, and you're only as good as your colors. They have to be fabulous. So look at that, how that's been mixed together. Isn't that gorge? All right, so now I'm going to take my water. Usually when I'm working with the plaster, I want it to be about the consistency of sour cream. So don't add too much water. Put it in there, and that way mix it around just a little bit. Now remember, we're live. We're in Memphis. This is Central Standard Time at noon. So if you see this, send me some love. If you're on Instagram or Facebook, please give me some love. But I also want to make sure that you ask me questions. All right, so I'm just going to...
Carrie says that she has pigments that she got in Morocco. Would they mix well with plaster?
Yes, if they're natural pigments. Who is this?
Carrie called.
Carrie. Hey, Carrie. I know Carrie, girl. Yes, you can mix, if they're natural pigments in Morocco, they probably came from some of the same regions that our pigments do from the south of France. All right, so see, you can see how I can mix that up with my plaster. So this is about, can you see the consistency? That's about the consistency that I want your plaster to be. All right. The other thing that you need to realize that if I'm going to be brushing on my plaster a lot of times, this was some that I mixed up earlier before we went live, is I mixed up just a little bit of the Noir milk paint with the plaster, but I didn't mix it quite as thick. Look at this. So it's not like paint, but it will kind of dollop like that. So it is kind of the consistency of sour cream. And this is all I did. I came back, and this is a piece of trim that I painted with my one-step paint. And you can paint the plaster mixture with the milk paint directly onto furniture. If you're going to be painting plaster onto furniture, it's probably best to prime it first, because the plaster doesn't have the adhesion qualities that most paints do. I like to just have like a primer or a binder. The one-step paint is perfect for that because it's a chalk-based paint. It's flat, and then that way you can just put a coat of it on there, preferably a lighter color. This is done in linen. That way I can coat the whole thing like this, and it's going to dry down in about 15 to 20 minutes, and it's going to look like this. Is that a gorgeous color? So, believe it or not, when you start mixing plasters with your milk paints, you can start layering those colors too. So I can also come back. I want to finish this because I want you to see what this is going to look like. I don't want to go too much into mixing waxes with milk paints because I'm going to do that next week. But I'm just going to take a little bit of my wax here. I just squeezed this out of this container so that way you can see what that looks like.
Can you explain this part for people who have just joined?
So if you've just joined, send me some love. Tell me that you love doing this on these Finish Fridays. We want to continue to teach y'all how to be able to use the products here at Amy Howard at Home. So I have just mixed up a little bit of our Noir milk paint with our Venetian plaster, which is a true Venetian plaster. And now I have brushed it onto my surface that was primed a little bit with some one-step. And I'm going to come back and look at this. Now, I'm just going to be dry brushing. Gosh, isn't that gorgeous? I'm just going to be dry brushing some of this wax. I've poured just a little bit of my wax out onto my cardboard. It's real important not to get the wax everywhere. By dry brushing it, what it's doing is it's kind of turning the color of that plaster and that milk paint. If I had too much, it's going to go too dark. And it's also going to be rubbing it just a little bit. Let me get just a little bit more wax. So see how I'm using a chip brush. It's best not to use a synthetic brush. Use a chip brush. Always offload it. You don't want to have too much. Get it to where it's almost completely dry, because that's what's allowing us to get this beautiful finish. Can you see that? I want to get close enough to that. Part of the beauty of this too is that plaster. Look at that. Is that plaster is that beautiful kind of dead chalky look along with that milk paint, but it's hardier, and when I come back when that's dry and I buff it, nothing looks like this. Nothing will look like this. It's important though, when you're working with the plaster and the milk paints, to make sure that you prime it first. Use the one step and prime it first. All right, I'm loving that. And that's just a simple black color. It's gonna dry down a little bit, but I can come back and buff it, and you're gonna love, love, love the look. All right, something else that you can do with the plaster, because it's going to thicken up your paint, and it's going to give you this beautiful kind of putty look. I could thicken that if I want to, just a little bit. Matter of fact, I am. I'm going to come back with just a little bit of my plaster. Are there any questions? Are we good?
No questions?
All right. These are my students. Y'all are turning into my students. Now, you're going to be able to learn all this, and I want you to make sure that you're sharing your images, that you do hashtag Amy Howard Home, and you're telling everybody what you're doing as you're learning on these Finish Fridays. All right. Got a couple more minutes here, and I just wanted to show you a couple of things. So remember, this is what we used earlier, that I mixed my Amalfi Coast milk paint with my Noir milk paint, made this gorgeous color. It's going to dry down about 50% lighter. So this, remember when it's wet, it looks totally different. Now,
can you mix chalk paint with plaster?
I would stick with milk paint. I would not do it. These guys are a good couple. So Jean might be the plaster and I might be the milk paint. So I think it's better. It's better to work with couples that are compatible, and I would stay with that. All right. So here's a little piece that I had put some plaster on earlier. I brushed it on and I lightly sanded it off. And I'm going to take a Mylar stencil here, and I'm going to lay this on here. And I'm just going to take a trowel. Usually I like this just a little bit thicker.
Does Ace sell your milk paints, or do they need to go online?
Ace does. Aces are all different. Aces are just, they're independent. So if you really want to be guaranteed that you're going to have it, you can go on our website and get it. All right, so I'm just going to lay this stencil down. And I've got this metal trowel that I'm just kind of going on top of here. I could have this actually just a little bit thicker. And I'm pressing that through my stencil to be able to give me a raised detail underneath. Look at that. Love that! So that way, as that dries down and it's going to come to a beautiful matte finish, I could be doing this maybe on the sides of a chest of drawer. I can come in too when I'm working on a wall. I could skim my entire wall with this Venetian plaster and then come back and add these details on them. I can lay that stencil back down there again and build it up to where it's literally raised. So it really gives you a lot of versatility with the milk paint. Here was something that I had done earlier. See how raised that is and how beautiful that can be, and it being buffed. So, and last but not least, just know that you can also make washes. So this is something that I had mixed earlier, and I had the plaster in it. And I can come back and age my furniture pieces with a wash of the plaster and the milk paint. You don't have to have it solid, The main thing is knowing that the milk paint and the plaster are compatible. That allows you to be able to get these really thick gesso-y type finishes that you would not want to do with the milk paint alone. And remember that you can mix the milk paint to be all different colors. Look at this. Does that blow your mind? So when you start thinking about specialty finishes and what it is that you're doing, guys, your finishes are only going to be as good and as unique as the products that you are using. And unfortunately, a lot of the products that are out there that are being made by most paint manufacturers, they're all about synthetics, they're all about chemicals, and you cannot get these old world, Renaissance looking finishes like you can get this. Does that blow your mind? And all that is a combination of my Venetian plaster with a little bit of my Amalfi Coast and our black milk paint mixed together to give me this gorgeous color that I can model, and it's going to dry down to this gorgeous, tactile, dead flat plaster type finish. So that's all the time we've got for today. I want you to stay in tune with us next Friday. We're going to be going over waxes. Have a very, very Merry Christmas. Know that we appreciate you. We love the fact that you love finishes as much as we do here at Amy Howard at Home. And we love teaching you because all of these products are incredibly special. They don't tell the story seeing them on a shelf. It's something that you have to know how to be able to do, how you can create finishes that truly can transform the way you are doing walls and furniture, cabinetries, all those. So have a great holiday, everybody. We love you. See you next week.